Welcome back to the 10 Adventures podcast. Today is the story of a couple who have managed to explore some of the world's great thru hikes while holding down busy jobs. And they have now written a book to share their expertise. With us are Tim and Renee, better known as THRU-HIKers on YouTube and social media, and they have just released a wonderful book called THRU-HIKers, A Guide to Life on the Trail. Hi, Renee and Tim. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Hi.
Really great to be here.
So first off, I want to congratulate you, Renee, on the fastest known time on the PCT across Oregon. I'm interested. What was the driving factor to attempt something kind of so ambitious and, put yourself through the pain of long, hot days, snow, what appeared to be a ton of bugs?
So, we've done some big thru hikes, and I think I was just looking for a new challenge, just something new to try out. Usually I hike with Tim. It seemed kind of exciting to try it, on my own. And I follow a lot of people who do fastest known times on social media. And I noticed that someone set this record last year and it seemed doable for me. It wasn't too crazy. So I thought, maybe I should just give it a try.
And then in setting this record, what do you think a beginner thru hiker could learn from you if they just look at, what you did? Are there a couple of things that are just so obvious that contributed to your success that a beginner thru hiker could take when they're planning their first trip?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think probably I really had minimal gear. Most of my pack was full of food. It was unsupported, so I needed to carry all my food for the entire 2 weeks. So definitely don't do that on a thru hike. But I think just the minimal gear to lighten the load and make the walking more enjoyable. And also efficiency throughout the day, just making sure everything that you need during the day is on the outside of your pack so you don't have to stop and take a break and dig through your pack to look for that snack that you want. So
I want to go back to the very start with your first experience on the PCT. And what I thought was really inspirational was, you're both, skilled professionals with important sounding jobs, and you left all that to, follow this passion. Can you maybe talk a bit why it was so important for the two of you to do your first trip on the Pacific Crest Trail?
It's all Renee's fault. She really, well, I guess she can speak for herself, but from my perspective, I was ready to wait until retirement. We had careers that were moving in a good trajectory, and I thought we should stick with our respective careers and not take 6 months off to go play in the woods. But Renee was really convincing, and we reached a point where we decided together to go for it. And gosh, that was an awesome decision.
Yeah, I think I just first got the idea because Tim's mom gave me a book for Christmas or my birthday or something, Wild by Cheryl Strayed, and introduced me to the Pacific Crest Trail, and I just got it in my head that I needed to do it. So, and why wait?
You wrote in your book, all we had to do every day was eat, drink, walk, and sleep, which is something actually I've always said. It's like this idea of simplicity. It connects with almost everyone who does even just like weekend backpacking, but definitely with longer trips. And I think what's interesting is, we all love the simplicity on the trail. Have you been able to bring that simplicity back to your daily life? Because so many of us, we then have these complex, busy lives, and this thing we love that changes our life, we kind of lose it as soon as we get back to real life.
I'd say we haven't. That part of being on the trail is one of the reasons we keep going back, and one of the things we like the most. It's so free out there. You're just focused on the things that you want to do and the things that you enjoy. And then we'll come back, and we often have plans of how we can simplify our regular lives, and they last for a few months, and then things get crazier and crazier, and neither of us
give in to society, and with access to the outside world, it's hard to keep things simple.
Yeah. When we finished the PCT, so that was our first thru hike. We weren't doing any videos. It was something we really did for ourselves, and it changed us so much. We thought we would potentially switch down the road to having less than full-time jobs and spending time relaxing more and percolating coffee and drinking coffee until late in the morning, and so many dreams. And then pretty soon we returned to the normal grind, and now we kind of have 2 jobs each because we do the videos and we do the regular jobs. We aren't giving those up, so we're not good at saying no to things. So it's like life creeps into this ideal that we always get to experience when we're out there of just walking.
But I mean, one thing I think we have done better is stuff. We don't buy stuff. We don't accumulate as much stuff as we used to. That we just don't need things. It's more, don't want to miss out on opportunities. So we're doing too much always.
And so after that first trip on the PCT, how did you progress? What were, your following through hikes that you folks did?
So after the PCT, we moved to Germany. We had been living in the US for our whole lives. And then for careers post-PCT, we had good opportunities in Germany. So we went over there and just got back to hiking whenever we could on the German trails. It turns out Germany has a lot of really good long distance, but not super long distance trails, so 100-ish miles. And we did that for a while, and then we discovered there was no good resource for mapping these trails, so we developed a mobile app called Wanderfreund for hiking on German trails, and we released that and hiked a bunch more to collect data to put into that app. But we really wanted to get back out and do more wilderness through hiking. So 3 years after the PCT, we set off on the Continental Divide Trail, the CDT, and that was another big break from normal careers to go hike again. And
I quit my job, and Tim tried to quit, but they let him switch to part-time. So that worked out well.
It turns out the most powerful way to get in a leave of absence is to quit and not be bluffing that you're quitting. And it was great. I was a professor and the dean. I sat down with him and said, I'm going to leave to go hiking and I have to quit. And he said, no, we can find a way to make this work that you can hike and remain a professor. So that was really lucky, and it worked well.
It's wild how many times, that happens where you kind of come up with the decision, I have to quit my job. How do I do it? And then things kind of work out. You just go do something for 4 or 5 months and you come back and, you don't have this worry about, I'm going to be able to work for, 4 to 6 weeks when I'm done, or a couple of months trying to find a job. And what am I going to do for money? Things just got to take care of themselves.
It's not as rare as people think it is to be able to do that. Like, there's definitely some luck involved, and we're really fortunate that we were able to make that work, and it wouldn't be simple always, but I think more often than people realize it is an option for them.
I'm really intrigued by your Pacific Northwest circuit. Before we had kids, we used to do a ton of whitewater canoeing. I haven't gone back with kids yet, but can you maybe describe how you came up with this route, and then a bit like what was it like? Because it just seems absolutely epic.
Yeah, so while we were hiking the Continental Divide Trail, we were pushing pretty hard at the second half of the trail, and just our feet were exhausted. So we just were kind of coming up with fun ideas for the next summer, and we thought canoeing sounded much easier than walking. But we love walking, so we thought, okay, let's come up with a route that includes walking and canoeing. And we were just out on the trail brainstorming, didn't have access to internet. So we just thought of rivers we knew and decided the Columbia River must be able to pair up with the Pacific Northwest Trail. And and we didn't really, that's what we decided without any access to much resources out on the CDT.
But then when we finished the CDT, we had close to a year before we started the Pacific Northwest Circuit. Then we did all the research and made sure it really was possible, and bought a book about kayaking the Columbia River. We canoed it, but if somebody can kayak it, we can canoe it. And so
we didn't read the book beforehand. We just, got the book and assumed that, if there is a book, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter exactly how it would be done. What mattered was it could be done. People have done this, and therefore we could do it. So after we bought the book, we also bought the ebook so we could read it while we traveled down the river.
We intended to read the book, but we didn't quite get to it. So, yeah.
Now, you started the Columbia paddle kind of near where I am, and it's pretty mellow. Like, the Columbia, you can kind of go out on a paddle board. But I'm interested, but I know there are some rapids, kind of in what is it, in the BC section, or kind of as you get down just below BC. But how gnarly is paddling, probably like 1,000 miles on the Columbia?
1,200 miles, and it's mostly calm. It's 95% a lake. That sounds like a river. That's what made the trip so hard, is it was a lake, except for a few points. We never flipped the boat, but just north of Golden, it is definitely has some turbulence. That was one of the scarier parts. And down near, what's that town called? Just past the border. North,
I don't remember.
in the U.S., I don't know, 50 miles south of the Canadian border, there's another pretty sketchy part that we actually got stuck on the wrong side of the river and had to camp not where we planned because we couldn't cross the river. It was so fast moving.
So you obviously love, being in wilderness, being active. What are the benefits that you receive from, through hiking or just spending time outdoors that keep you coming back?
Yeah, I think just time away from the world to just think and enjoy the surroundings and wildlife. Love seeing wildlife. Just kind of be outside with your own mind, and it's really freeing. Your mind, when you don't have inputs and it's just up to you to think about stuff and talk about stuff. It's pretty freeing.
I'd add fitness. We eat whatever we want because we're active enough that it burns off. So that's a nice benefit.
I couldn't agree more. And there is something, just your mind goes a different place when you don't have all this stuff going around, when you aren't kind of rushing around, kind of as you said, Renee, like kind of different pathways seem to open up sometimes. And you're like, oh, I just solved a problem that I've kind of been thinking about for a year. And then you're like, how is it so obvious? How come I didn't think of it? But there's some out nature that, gets the brain working in different ways.
I tell you what, though, I completely agree. But also your mind goes where it wants. So when I was splitting my time between being a professor and being a hiker, my colleagues said, wow, that's really great. You get to go out for 4 months and not have to work, and you probably just think about science the whole time. And I hope none of them are listening, because I did not think about science. I thought about the landscape and the animals and how tired I was or how hungry I was or whatever, wherever my mind took me. But it was rarely on to, the next paper I publish, it's going to be solved this way and these will be my methods and whatever.
So you two have over 10,000 miles of wilderness experience. You've written this great book. What's your goal for readers who pick up the book?
Yeah, I think we just hope to help others get outside and enjoy it as much as we do. And the more people that are outside enjoying it, the more the outdoors will be preserved, is our hope.
Chapter 3, I think, is like, kind of the number one source of failure for people that get started in this. And it's just talking about too much gear. Can you share some of your, the basic tenets you guys live by when you're packing for anything, whether it's a weekend backpacking trip or, even a longer through hike?
Yeah, we have a phrase we live by. We must have written it into the book. There's also one of our early videos from before anybody watched us is a silly music video I made about this phrase, which is, when in doubt, leave it out. So basically, just the less you bring, the happier you'll be. Some obvious things are clothing. People bring too much clothing. You need layers for warmth, but you don't need clean clothes to change into when you're just going to get dirty anyway. So we bring a couple pairs of underwear each, a couple socks each, but one outfit for an entire summer, and we'll wash it when we get a chance or in streams. Yeah, that one jumps out for me. Just if there's something you say, oh, will I use this or not? Probably not, and you probably don't need it.
What are some of the unique things, you have a great packing list in the book. What are some unique things that maybe people don't think about? Everyone tries to go really minimal, but maybe there's some things that you shouldn't scrimp on. Is there anything that, kind of fits the bill of, oh, more people should actually be carrying this?
No.
I guess not. I mean, don't leave out your first aid kit. You might not use it, but definitely bring a first aid kit.
But keep it small.
Just little, don't bring a 5-pound first aid kit. Just bring a little bit of each thing. You can create your own and make it small.
I'll change the question a little bit. What are things people don't think about, not because they should be bringing and they'll forget them, because there's nothing like that. But things they don't think about that they should think more about. Often food and water, people think of it as, well, I need to bring food, I need to bring water, and that's that. And then we get in the habit of calculating a base weight, which is the weight of your stuff without food and water. And that's a useful weight to think about. But depending on the food you bring, you can really change the weight of your pack, and you can have a lot of unnecessary weight in there if you bring heavy foods compared to light foods, which is a big part of why we dehydrate food. And even when we're picking our snack food, we try to think about what's a light snack. And the more we're having dehydrated snacks instead of bars, which have a fair amount of moisture in them often, the lighter weight our food will be. Same thing goes for water. We used to, before we really understood weight, we would filter all of our water in the morning for the whole day. So we only had to stop once. And every liter of water is 2.2 pounds. So a day's worth of water could be 10 pounds extra in your pack. And that's an entire extra pack of stuff that you might not need if you're passing a bunch of water sources anyway. In the desert, you need the water, but in the mountains or in a lush green area with lots of streams, you don't need to bring water between water sources beyond just 1 liter's worth.
Yeah, so maybe to answer your question, a good map that shows water sources.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned just the food decisions, because just a few weeks ago we were backpacking and the group next to us were eating tins of Chef Boyardee and tins of tuna, but they had, Big Agnes ultralight tents, and I was just like, it kind of doesn't, why do you spend $800 on a tent and then bring Chef Boyardee? But yeah, I guess everyone does it their own unique way.
I mean, and sometimes there's reasons, like a lot of thru hikers will, their first night out of town, they like to carry some fresh fruit or avocados. I get it. It's one extra day's worth of heavy stuff in the interest of having a really nice first meal when you're out of town. But to pack a full resupply stretch, 7 days of Chef Boyardee, that would be miserable.
Yeah, it didn't look good. And Chef Boyardee is not worth the wait
for an hour.
Chapter 7 is all about safety on the trail, and I always feel this is an area a lot of people just ignore. They don't think about all the stuff that can go wrong, and so I was really I thought it was really great that you went into so much detail on there. Are there a couple simple pieces of advice for someone who's maybe thinking about doing their first thru hike about how they can stay safe? What are some real key aspects to consider?
Yeah, I think don't bite off more than you can chew. Just kind of start small if you don't know your limits, and just slowly build up. If you plan out you've never been backpacking before, you decide you want to hike a 15-mile a day backpacking trip, that's maybe too much, and you might get yourself into trouble because you're exhausted and not thinking clearly and injured. And so I think just definitely know your limits, or start small and learn your limits and slowly build up.
Yeah. Maybe another one is pay attention to the conditions. Weather especially can really change whether a hike is simple or dangerous. One example would be a sunny 50-degree day. What is that Celsius? 13, 14 degrees Celsius. That's fine. Everybody's fine in those temperatures. But a cloudy, rainy, 14, 15 degrees Celsius day, that could end up being hypothermia if you aren't properly equipped for it. And so just being aware that changing weather can really change a hike to something a lot more than you were expecting it to be, can be a safety issue.
You have a great part of the book. Part 3 is all about food. And I think like for anyone that reads this section, you'll save hundreds or thousands of dollars just by switching up your approach from buying these, ready pack meals to doing it yourself. Kind of the core of this is dehydrating. Can you maybe talk to people who haven't dehydrated their own food about like the process? Because I think people feel like this is some sort of like magic or super, super challenging, but it's actually not that hard. And you guys seem to have it totally dialed in. You guys are like so sophisticated compared to what I'm doing. I feel like a kindergartner compared to some of your suggestions.
Well, it's not just hundreds or thousands of dollars of savings, but it's much tastier too. It's remarkable how bad that store-bought stuff often is. We're still trying to figure out exactly why it's always so bad, but it's expensive, it tastes bad, and it's usually not filling. So that's a part of why we started dehydrating.
Yeah, and I think, dehydrating is pretty simple. You're just heating up food at a low temperature to remove all the moisture. So you can even, if you've never done it before and you want to get started, you can try doing it in your oven to test it out even,
And the machines, if you do buy a machine, they can be cheap. You can find them on Amazon for $50, or we have a pretty top of the line one, and was it $200 or $250? So it's that whole range from tens of dollars to a couple hundred at the high end. So they're not expensive. And yeah, you suck the food out, you put it in the machine, or you suck the moisture out. You put it in there on trays, and then it has a fan, and I don't know, Celsius again, 135 Fahrenheit is what we usually run it for. Is that, I don't know, 43, 38 Celsius.
Your metric to imperial conversion is incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, we lived in Germany for 4 years. I should be able to speak Celsius, but I can't. But anyway, so kind of a medium temperature, and it just runs for 8 hours. And as it does that, the water evaporates out and it becomes really light, and it preserves it too. So we just preserve the food, or we assemble meals and then put it in Ziploc bags. We don't even need fancy storage. And in a Ziploc bag, if it's fully dry, it'll last for a year and weigh almost nothing.
And they take up way less space. If you have those ready-made meals, your pack is just bloated and you have all that extra trash. So I was super impressed. Like, we're still beginners. We just dehydrate a bunch of vegetables, and the only spice we bring is chili oil. So just a lot of ramen with a bunch of vegetables and chili oil. You guys use to way more. What are each of your favorite meals that you put in the book? Is there something that's like, oh yeah, this one is always going in the pack when you guys go on the trail?
Yeah, my favorite is peanut butter pasta. So I
was looking at that one. I thought that one looked good. I'm like, oh man, that looks so good.
I love it. And it has peanut butter powder and coconut milk powder. So it's really, creamy and tasty. Some cayenne pepper if you want a kick. Yep.
For me, I think it's our curry rice, which we've been cooking forever. But it's so good. It just, we make it with basmati rice, which comes back so much better than instant rice would. Instant rice is basically the same as dehydrated rice you can make at home, but the dehydrated rice, you can start with a high quality rice in the first place, and then
so to clarify, we at home cook the rice and then dehydrate it. So we're a bit of rice snobs.
Yeah, definitely. But you could cook that meal with store-bought instant rice too. And then it's often got cashews and zucchini, and we even like to put raisins in there, which are really good. What else? Just a bunch of curry powder. Good veggies, tastes filling and yummy.
I've never thought of dehydrating rice, because you're right. All the instant rice that you get is just like, doesn't taste good at all. It's so simple.
Yeah. Dehydrating rice is actually part of what got people following us on the internet in the first place. It was a big shocker, but we made a video about dehydrating rice, and it took off probably because folks were saying, why are you cooking and then uncooking your rice? But it's not uncooking rice. It's changing the form of cooked rice.
So I want to talk a bit about your YouTube channel, because it's kind of a unique take about how you do this compared to what almost how everyone else, does their, YouTube channels. Do you want to talk a little bit about your approach to, sharing and creating content on YouTube?
Yeah, so we love to make YouTube shorts, which is, different than other folks, but it seems like people have short attention spans these days. And so if we can just get the information across in a short video, we find that's pretty well received.
Yeah, we often will make a video, and regardless of whatever the length is, we'll look at it again and say, what can we pull out of this video that's extra stuff? So that was born from when we had to get videos under 60 seconds. And if we had a 68-second video, we'd try to find 8 seconds to cut. But it turns out whether the video is 48 seconds or 38 or 58, it's still a good idea just to try to get as direct and to the point as possible. And then we do a lot of educational videos and lifestyle updates when we're actually out there. And just trying to give people a window into what the trail life looks like for us.
And so, you still have jobs. You're, really prolific, YouTube content creators, and you're on the trail a lot. How do you balance all these things? If someone looks at this and says, I kind of want to live a lifestyle like that, what are some tips that they can take to, do all this without, running themselves ragged?
I think that's what I was getting at earlier with we've failed to make our lives as simple as we had once envisioned, because we're enjoying all this stuff, so we don't want to give up any of it. But
yeah, I think we have quit our jobs to go hiking for 6 months. We have switched to part-time. We both did a 2 years or so working part-time so that we could take the summer off to go hiking. Right now I'm working full-time, but my employer was nice enough to let me take 2.5 weeks off to do the FKT in Oregon, and so it's just.
I'm working full-time too. That you may sound like it's only you, but no.
Yes, you are. But I think, just making sure to prioritize what's important to you. And I've found a great employer who let me quit and come back and work part-time. And I'm really lucky.
I'd add, that you basically covered it. The thing I'd throw in too is that we haven't been afraid to take risks, and that's been a big part of how we've gotten to the point of being able to hike and work. Is when a hike is what made sense for us, we took that risk and quit our jobs and did the hike. And when switching back to work is what made sense, well, we had a compelling story of we left our last jobs to go do this exciting thing, and now we're coming to the next jobs, all part of the same career trajectory, and nobody's really held that against us. So it's been powerful to be willing to focus on the things that are going to be enjoyable for us and prioritize those, like Renee said.
And I think one thing I would add is, before the Pacific Crest Trail, we had both been working for close to 10 years and had saved up a lot of money. But I think the Pacific Crest Trail also did teach us about that living simply. So we were able to, readjust our life in that way, that we could find ways to spend less money and save it for the things that were important to us, like taking 6 months off to do another hike.
Yeah, THRU-HIKE is not free, but it's not the same as buying a mansion either. So the cost of doing a trip like this is within reach for people with most careers if they save for long enough to have the money in the bank that it's going to cost for 6 months of food and some travel. And it's not cheap, but it's within reach for almost any job.
Yep. your housing is free. I mean, other than the initial investment of the tent, but it's pretty cheap after that. So,
thanks for coming on the show today, Tim and Renee. It was great to hear your stories and learn a little bit more about how you got to where you are, which is, from an outsider, it seems really incredible.
Thank you. It's been really fun to meet you and fun to chat.
And so Tim and Renee's new book, THRU-HIKING, A Guide to Life on the Trail, is out now. And this is a great book. Holiday season's coming up. And I think if you've got a loved one that loves the outdoors and wants to make their trips better, and I'll tell you right now, the cooking section is going to make my kids so much happier because they're tired of ramen with a bunch of vegetables. Or if you're somebody or know somebody that wants to, go on a great backpack or a thru hike, then this is a great book to get them. And, the physical copy, it's beautiful. It's a, big book with great photos and drawings. So if people want to find the book or find yourself, where can they pick up the book? Where can they find you two online?
The book's available pretty much wherever books are sold. Amazon, easy, but type in Google THRU-HIKING, A Guide to Life on the Trail, and it'll pop right up, and buy it from anywhere. It's the same for us.
And it's available in local bookstores too. So in the US and Canada. Yeah. And you can find us at THRU-HIKING on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok,
Snapchat, Facebook, and THRU-HIKING.co is our website.
Wicked. I'll put those links in the show notes. And with that, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the 10 Adventures podcast. We'll be back next week to explore the world and hear about more epic adventures. Start planning your own adventure by visiting us at 10adventures.com and listen to other episodes of the 10 Adventures podcast on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you find your podcasts.